No, I think that all models are in general agreement that it will be a basically westerly course. It might be slightly northwest, slightly south of west, and that's the reason for this watch all the way from Titusville through the Florida Keys.
Now, at how wide a distance, once we get the storm closer to the coast and we get a good feeling of where it's coming in, obviously the closer it is, the better we know. When it gets there, we know, right? But how big a distance to the north and south are we talking about a significant storm surge situation?
Well, the storm surge itself will be concentrated over a distance of probably 40 to 50 miles, maybe a little bit more than that with a peak kind of surge. Of course, you're going to have wave action outside of that area. The problem is when you have this timing problem that we have right now, we're sort of 12 hours out of cycle phase of what I'd like to be able to give the daylight leading time there, we have to warn a little bit early, and that means our warnings have to be a little broader.
All right, I know you have buoys out there offshore measuring the swells coming in. Are we seeing swells yet approaching the coast from the storm?
I don't think so. It's a relatively small storm, so that means you don't get these big swells like we had from Gabrielle and some of the others. So we're not going to have those until the storm starts to get a little stronger and a little closer.
What was I'm trying to think in my head here, the last storm that was a little storm like this that came ashore?
Well, we've had strong...
Bob wasn't a big storm, obviously.
No, it was, Bob was a similar size to this particular hurricane, maybe slightly larger than this particular hurricane. Inez, 1966, some of those extreme storms that were there. Cleo was a very small storm that affected this area, but this is a little bit more than Cleo.
Okay. All right, well, that's a good gauge, and because we'll be looking back at those storms of the past, I'm sure. Bob, we'll be back with you again later on this evening. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Okay. All right, now, let's go over one more time.
And we're looking at hurricanes off each coast. We have Lester here off Baja, California, and of course the one we're really concerned about, this is Andrew. Seems to be heading steadily for Florida at about 15 miles an hour. We haven't seen a whole lot of change in that during the day. Here are the latest particulars from the National Hurricane Center. This issued at 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, centered at 25.9 north, 70.4 west, and that is 650 miles now, just about due east of Miami. Top winds up to 100 miles an hour and moving steadily westward at 15 miles an hour. We haven't actually had a pressure just lately from reconnaissance aircraft. We should have another one pretty soon. At that time, the pressure was 974 millibars, or that is 28.76 inches. Now, the best we can see, it's going to continue a path directly toward the west. We don't know exactly where it's going to hit precisely, but certainly we're concerned about the Bahamas, and we're concerned about the central part of Florida and the southern part, and even all the way across the peninsula, as this hurricane is likely to move on across, we do believe. This is the latest satellite picture, and you can see this well-defined eye moving steadily toward the west. We watched it get better organized all day, and now it is, as you can see, a pretty powerful hurricane. We have yet another picture, and this one will give you a bit broader view. There is the eye of the hurricane, and there you see the Bahamas, Eleuthera, Andros Island there, Eleuthera up here, and the Grand Bahama and the Great Abaco. And here comes the hurricane headed in that general direction at a steady 15 miles per hour. As we take a little bit of a look to see what the wind field looks like, 85 miles or so is what the tropical storm force winds extend out, and the hurricane force winds extend out about 30 or 40 miles from the center. Now, we do have some watches and some warnings to talk to you about. The government of the Bahamas has issued hurricane warnings for Eleuthera, Andros Island up to Great Abaco, and on up to Grand Bahama. And a hurricane watch is now in effect from Titusville, Florida, through the Florida Keys or to Dry Tortugas. It looks as if we'll be getting hurricane force winds in the Bahamas sometime tomorrow and sometime by early Monday along the Florida coast. So all you people there want to prepare for a hurricane, and it could be a pretty powerful hurricane by the time it gets there. Already it's powerful enough, and it's been a long time since you folks in South Florida have experienced a direct hit with this kind of a hurricane.
Hurricane watch is now in effect in Florida. Good evening. With winds of 100 miles an hour, Hurricane Andrew is heading towards South Florida. Team coverage begins with Channel 4 meteorologist Brian Norcross. Brian.
Okay, Jerry, here are the latest coordinates on Hurricane Andrew. These coordinates as of 5 o'clock. Now, we're going to get coordinates at least every 3 hours, and as the storm comes closer to land, we'll get them more often than that. But as of 5 o'clock, it's 25.9 north, 70.4 west. Top winds 100 miles an hour, moving to the west at 15, and west brings it right to Miami. It's 615 miles due east of Miami. This particular latitude is essentially the same latitude that we are right here. So if the storm continues on this path, and it is heading right down the pike of due west at this point, we expect that the storm is going to be in our neighborhood here by early in the day Monday, and possibly very, very early in the day Monday. Now, the central pressure, we have two numbers here, because some people like it in millibars, other people like it in inches. 974 millibars, 28.76 inches. And the other thing to notice here is that this number, the 25.9 north, is the same latitude that we had at 2 o'clock, and also that we had at 11 o'clock this morning. Now, we do have watches and warnings in effect. First of all, hurricane warnings in effect for the northern Bahamas, including Nassau, Freeport, that's Great Abaco, that's Andros Island, and Eleuthera. And what a hurricane warning means is that hurricane conditions are likely within the next 24 hours. And here's where the hurricane watch is in effect, meaning hurricane conditions are possible. So we're standing by here for more information. We'll show you what systems are affecting this and why we think it will not veer far to the north, if it veers north at all. Have that for you in just a few minutes, and we'll check in with the Hurricane Center. Jose.
Okay, Brian, thank you. With Hurricane Andrew now posing a direct threat to South Florida, preparations, as you can imagine, are essential.
Or it may be an indication of something to come. The odds that the storm is going to have a due west course, though, for the next 2 days is unlikely. Some change is likely to occur. One possible scenario would be that the storm would begin to curve back to the north. Again, it has a lot to do with this big high-pressure area to the north. Exactly how strong that is, how much is it going to push?
What we call a live feed for their news reports. Let's go now down the line where the other hurricane specialists are working in other areas. On this side over here, this is where the regular homegrown weather is done. During a hurricane, we still have to have reports on what the local weather is doing. This is the local National Weather Center here, which is just across the room from the National Hurricane Center. So the two of them are right next to each other. As we go down the line, this is basically the publicity area. This is where Dr. Sheets and the hurricane specialists who are giving the press releases and updates sit. They come to sit in front of that big monitor so that you at home can see what's happening on the satellite loops coming down from the National Hurricane Center system. Now, along here, you see all of the computers. This is where they can take the data that is coming in from the ships at sea, the satellite information that comes in, also, of course, the reconnaissance aircraft, feed information in. The various programs they have in these computers then analyze that data and give them a pretty good idea of what's happening with the storm dynamics. Now, right here, this is the bullpen. And here we have Miles, who is one of the hurricane specialists, going through some of the latest data, putting it into the computer and analyzing it. The phones you see back there are connected to the aircraft and the other reporting systems and other stations around the country and other systems around the world that report into the National Hurricane Center with data concerning what's happening with the storm in their area. Okay, that's what it looks like in the National Hurricane Center in the bullpen area right now. Of course, this is one of the satellite pictures that they're putting through the computer system right now and analyzing. So all we can tell you is it's going to be a very busy night here at the National Hurricane Center, and the war room that you saw, the TV pool area, and even this conference room is probably going to be elbow to armpit tomorrow with more TV people trying to get the word out on what Andrew is going to do. We're here already and already set up to keep you posted, so keep it right here on Channel 7 for the latest on what Andrew is going to do, what, when, and how hard.
Okay, thank you very much. Steve Adams.